The ultimatum, 2,000 words. The day Earth's skies turned red would be forever etched in human history. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. No dust storm or volcanic eruption could have caused such an ominous sight. As billions of people looked up, their faces bathed in crimson light, a bone-chilling message echoed across every communication device on the planet. People of Earth, hear our decree. We are the galactic hegemony, rulers of 1,000 star systems. Your planet now falls under our dominion. Submit, and you may live as our subjects. Resist, and face total annihilation. You have 7 planetary rotations to decide. Choose wisely. The message, translated into every human language, was followed by an eerie silence. For a moment, the world stood still. Then, chaos erupted. In New York, panicked crowds flooded the streets. In Beijing, millions huddled around screens, desperate for information. In Lagos, people fell to their knees in prayer. The red sky loomed over them all, a constant reminder of the threat that hung over humanity. World leaders scrambled to convene an emergency session of the United Nations. As representatives from every nation gathered in the General Assembly Hall, the atmosphere was tense. Fear, anger, and confusion permeated the air. UN Secretary General Amara Okoro, a tall woman from Nigeria with a reputation for unwavering resolve, took the podium. Her voice, usually calm and measured, trembled slightly as she addressed the assembly. Distinguished delegates, we face an unprecedented crisis. An alien force threatens our very existence. We must decide, as one human race, how to respond. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices. Some nations advocated for immediate surrender, arguing that resistance against such an advanced civilization would be futile. Others called for defiance, unwilling to bow to alien demands. As the debate raged, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of the Global Defense Initiative, requested permission to speak. A brilliant strategist with a background in both military tactics and advanced physics, Dr. Tanaka had been preparing for this day her entire career. Honored representatives, she began, her voice cutting through the noise. I understand the fear we all feel, but we cannot surrender without a fight. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before, from ice ages to pandemics. Each time, we've survived through innovation and determination. This is no different. She paused, letting her words sink in. The hegemony believes we'll either submit or be easily crushed, but they've made a critical error. They've underestimated us. We have 7 days, 7 days to show them, and ourselves, what humanity is truly capable of. Dr. Tanaka's words sparked a fire in the assembly. Even those who had advocated for surrender began to reconsider. The human spirit, when pushed to its limits, had always proven remarkably resilient. As the UN session continued, another drama was unfolding in a secret facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Here, in a room filled with holographic displays and humming supercomputers, sat the core team of Earth's defense. Colonel Marcus Chen, a veteran of countless conflicts, studied tactical simulations with a furrowed brow. Beside him, Dr. Sophia Reyes, a prodigy in quantum mechanics, scribbled furiously on a digital whiteboard, her equations pushing the boundaries of known physics. We can't match them in firepower, Chen muttered, shaking his head at the projections. Their tech is centuries ahead of ours. Sophia looked up from her calculations, a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. Maybe we don't need to match them. What if we could disrupt their tech instead? She quickly explained her theory, a way to generate quantum interference fields that could potentially disable the hegemony's advanced systems. It was risky, untested, and might not work at all. But it was a chance. As word of this potential defense spread, a wave of cautious hope began to build. All around the world, scientists, engineers, and innovators threw themselves into the task of preparing Earth's defenses. Traditional rivalries and national boundaries faded in the face of this common threat. In Silicon Valley, tech giants retooled their production lines to manufacture advanced sensors and communication devices. In Bangalore, software developers worked around the clock, creating AI systems to coordinate Earth's defenses. In Moscow, aerospace engineers redesigned fighter jets for potential space combat. The next few days saw an unprecedented surge of human creativity and cooperation. Ideas that would have taken years to implement were fast-tracked into production. Resources were pooled, knowledge was shared freely, and impossible deadlines were met through sheer determination. But it wasn't just the scientific and military communities that mobilized. Ordinary citizens, unwilling to simply wait for their fate to be decided, found ways to contribute. Farmers offered their land for the construction of underground bunkers. Retired soldiers volunteered to train civilians in basic defense tactics. School children organized supply drives, ensuring essential goods reached those working tirelessly on the front lines of Earth's preparation. As the deadline approached, Earth had transformed. Hidden defense systems now dotted the planet. A network of quantum satellites, hastily launched, orbited overhead. And in every corner of the globe, humans stood ready, united as never before. On the eve of the seventh day, Secretary General Okoro addressed the world once more. Her voice, broadcast to every functioning device on the planet, carried a strength that inspired millions. Citizens of Earth, tomorrow we face our greatest challenge. The galactic hegemony demanded our submission. They expected us to cower in fear. But in these 7 days, we have shown the true strength of humanity. We have innovated, cooperated, and prepared in ways they could never have anticipated. She paused, her words hanging in the air. Whatever happens tomorrow, know this: we face it together as one human race. We may be outnumbered, we may be outgunned, but we will never be outmatched in spirit and determination. As Okoro's speech concluded, a sense of resolute calm settled over the planet. In homes and shelters, in command centers and defense installations, humans braced themselves for what was to come. They had done all they could to prepare. Now they would stand their ground. As the first light of the seventh day broke over the horizon, Earth's atmosphere crackled with energy. The quantum interference fields, Earth's first line of defense, sprang to life. In orbit, satellite networks hummed, ready to coordinate the planet's response. Then, as billions held their breath, the red sky shimmered. The hegemony's fleet, vast beyond imagination, began to materialize. Massive ships, each large enough to overshadow entire cities, took position around the planet. A new message boomed across the planet. Humans, your time is up. What is your answer? In response, every screen on Earth lit up with a single image, the face of Secretary General Okoro. Her expression was one of fierce determination as she delivered humanity's reply. Galactic hegemony, you came here expecting to find a primitive, easily conquered species. Instead, you face a united Earth, prepared to defend our home with every ounce of our strength and ingenuity. We reject your ultimatum. We will not submit. And we will show you exactly what humanity is capable of. As Okoro's words faded, the sky erupted in a dazzling display of light and energy. Earth's defenses, hidden until this moment, sprang into action. The battle for humanity's future had begun. In orbit, the first clashes between Earth's hastily assembled Space Force and the hegemony's vast armada lit up the sky. On the ground, millions watched with a mixture of fear and hope. The next few hours would determine the fate of their species. Humanity had made its stand. Now they would fight with everything they had, driven by the unbreakable spirit that had carried their species through countless challenges. The galactic hegemony was about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the power of humanity when its back is against the wall. Preparation and innovation, 2,000 words. The initial shock of the hegemony's ultimatum quickly gave way to a frenzy of activity. With the clock ticking, humanity threw itself into preparations with a fervor never before seen in history. The entire planet became a hive of innovation, cooperation, and determination. In the sprawling underground complex beneath the Rocky Mountains, Now dubbed Fortress Earth, Dr. Sophia Reyes hunched over a holographic display. Her eyes, red-rimmed from lack of sleep, darted between complex equations and real-time simulations. "We're close," she muttered, more to herself than to Colonel Chen, who stood nearby. "The quantum interference field is stable in simulations, but we need more power to cover the entire planet." Chen nodded, his military mind already racing with tactical applications. "What if we don't need to cover the whole planet at once? Could we create localized fields, deploy them where needed?" Sophia's eyes lit up. Localized fields. Yes, that could work. We could mount the generators on mobile platforms, even spacecraft. It would give us flexibility, make us less predictable. As they refined the concept, similar breakthroughs were happening all over the world. In Johannesburg, a team led by Dr. Kwesi Osei had repurposed mining lasers into powerful energy weapons. In Tokyo, robotics expert Dr. Hana Watanabe was putting the finishing touches on a swarm of AI-driven nanodrones, capable of infiltrating and disrupting alien technology. But perhaps the most ambitious project was taking shape in low Earth orbit. A hastily assembled team of the world's top aerospace engineers, led by Indian prodigy Arjun Patel, was overseeing the construction of Earth's first true space fleet. "We can't match their numbers or raw firepower," Arjun explained during a global briefing. "So we're focusing on speed and maneuverability. Our ships will be small, agile, and packed with the best technology we can produce in the time we have." The ships, dubbed Fireflies for their size and agility, incorporated all of humanity's latest innovations. Quantum interference generators, Osei's repurposed mining lasers, and Watanabe's nanodrone swarms were all integrated into their design. As the deadline approached, the first squadron of Fireflies took shape in orbit, their sleek hulls gleaming in the sunlight. They were few in number compared to the massive hegemony fleet, but they represented the pinnacle of human engineering and determination. On the ground, preparation took other forms. Cities around the world were transformed into fortresses. Skyscrapers were retrofitted with energy shields, their windows replaced with reactive armor plating. Underground tunnels, once used for transportation, were converted into shelters and command centers. In rural areas, farmers worked alongside military engineers to create hidden weapon emplacements and supply caches. Fields of wheat and corn now concealed arrays of anti-aircraft batteries and EMP generators. But it wasn't just about military preparation. Recognizing that this would be a fight for survival, humanity also focused on preserving its knowledge and culture. In secure locations around the world, vast databases were established, containing the sum of human scientific knowledge, art, literature, and history. "If the worst happens," Secretary General Okoro had said, "we must ensure that some part of us survives, that the story of humanity doesn't end here." As the days passed, a new sense of unity emerged. Old rivalries and conflicts were set aside in the face of this existential threat. Resources were shared, knowledge flowed freely across borders, and a global sense of purpose took hold. In New Delhi, a young software developer named Rahul worked tirelessly on an AI system designed to coordinate Earth's defenses. His code would help manage the complex network of sensors, weapons, and communication systems that now span the globe. "It's not just about the technology," Rahul explained to a group of international observers. "It's about using our creativity, our ability to think outside the box. The hegemony might have advanced tech, but they've never faced an opponent like us before." This sentiment was echoed in laboratories, factories, and command centers around the world. Humanity was not just preparing for war. They were redefining what was possible, pushing the boundaries of science and engineering in ways that would have seemed impossible just days before. In Antarctica, a team led by climatologist Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working on a daring plan to weaponize Earth's weather. "If they want our planet," Elena said with a grim smile, "let's show them just how inhospitable it can be." Her team had developed a network of weather control stations capable of generating localized storms, blizzards, and even controlled seismic activity. It was a risky strategy, one that could have long-term consequences for Earth's climate, but in the face of total annihilation, such concerns seemed secondary. As the deadline drew nearer, humanity's preparations reached a fever pitch. In every corner of the globe, people worked with a shared purpose, driven by a mix of fear, determination, and hope. In orbit, Arjun Patel supervised the final tests of the Firefly fleet. The ships darted and weaved through a series of complex maneuvers, their pilots pushing the limits of the new technology. "They're ready," Arjun reported to the Global Command. "As ready as they'll ever be." Back in Fortress Earth, Dr. Rice and Colonel Chen put the finishing touches on the global defense strategy. The plan leveraged every innovation, every piece of technology, and every ounce of human ingenuity they could muster. "It's not a guaranteed victory," Chen admitted, looking over the final simulations. "But it gives us a fighting chance, and sometimes that's all humanity needs." As the seventh day dawned, Earth was transformed. Gone was the panic and fear of the initial announcement. In its place stood a united planet, bristling with new technologies and filled with a populace ready to fight for their survival. Secretary General Okoro, who had become the face of humanity's resistance, made one final address to the planet. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice steady and resolute. "In 7 days, we have achieved what many thought impossible. We have united as never before, innovated beyond our wildest dreams, and prepared to face a threat greater than any in our history." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the camera, seeming to make eye contact with every viewer around the world. "But our greatest strength lies not in our new weapons or technologies. It lies in our spirit, our determination, our unwillingness to bow in the face of tyranny." The galactic hegemony thought they would find an easy conquest. Instead, they will face the full might of a united Earth. Her words resonated across the planet, from the bustling command centers to the quietest shelters. In that moment, humanity stood as one, ready to face whatever came next. As the deadline approached, a tense calm settled over the planet. In orbit, the Firefly fleet took up defensive positions. On the ground, weapon systems hummed to life, and soldiers took their posts. In shelters and bunkers, civilians huddled together, watching screens that showed the ominous red sky. Then, as the final hours ticked away, the sky began to shimmer. The massive ships of the galactic hegemony began to materialize, their hulls blocking out the sun and casting long shadows over the Earth. For a moment, everything was still. Humanity held its collective breath, waiting for the hegemony's next move. They had prepared, innovated, and united like never before. Now, it was time to see if it would be enough. As the alien ships loomed overhead, humanity's response systems sprang into action. The quantum interference fields flickered to life, creating a shimmering barrier around key locations. In orbit, the Firefly fleet moved into attack formation, their engines glowing with barely contained energy. On screens around the world, Secretary General Okoro's face appeared one last time. Her expression was one of fierce determination as she delivered humanity's reply to the hegemony's ultimatum. To the galactic hegemony, hear this. We, the people of Earth, reject your demand for submission. We stand united, ready to defend our home with every resource at our disposal. You may have traveled across the stars to reach us, but you will find that the human spirit is not so easily conquered. We choose to fight, and we will show you the true strength of humanity. As her words faded, the sky erupted in a dazzling display of light and energy. Earth's defenses, hidden until this moment, sprang into action. The battle for humanity's future had begun, and the galactic hegemony was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating the ingenuity and determination of the human race. First contact and initial battles, 2,000 words. The moment of truth had arrived. As the hegemony's massive ships filled Earth's skies, an eerie silence fell across the planet. For a brief instant, it seemed as if the world was holding its breath, waiting to see who would make the first move. That silence was shattered by a deafening roar as the hegemony opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced down from their ships, aimed at Earth's major cities and military installations. But as the beams approached the planet's surface, they met an unexpected resistance. The quantum interference fields, Dr. Rai's brainchild, sprang to life. The alien energy weapons twisted and diffracted, their destructive power greatly diminished. While some damage was done, it was far less than the hegemony had anticipated. In orbit, Colonel Chen's voice crackled over the comm systems of the Firefly fleet. All units, engage as planned. Show them what humanity can do. The Fireflies burst into action, their smaller size and superior maneuverability immediately apparent as they weaved between the massive hegemony ships. Arjun Patel's innovative designs proved their worth as the Earth ships unleashed a barrage of repurposed mining lasers and swarms of nanodrones. On the hegemony's flagship, Supreme Commander Zaxonar watched in disbelief as the supposedly primitive humans mounted an organized and effective defense. "Impossible," he muttered, his multiple eyes blinking in confusion. They were meant to be helpless. But helpless was the last thing humanity was proving to be. As the space battle raged, Earth's ground defenses came to life. In the plains of Kansas, wheat fields parted to reveal hidden missile silos. From the peaks of the Andes, energy weapons powered by geothermal vents opened fire on hegemony ships that ventured too close to the atmosphere. In the skies over Beijing, a squadron of next-generation fighter jets, hastily retrofitted with alien-derived technology, engaged a group of hegemony assault craft. The human pilots, their skills honed by years of simulator training, proved more than a match for the alien invaders. Lieutenant Mai Chen, leading the squadron, barrel-rolled her jet to avoid enemy fire. "They may have better tech," she shouted over the comm, "but we've got better pilots." Her words were punctuated by the explosion of an alien craft, taken down by her precisely aimed missiles. Back in Fortress Earth, Dr. Sophia Reyes monitored the effectiveness of the quantum interference fields. "They're working better than we hoped," she reported to the Global Command Center. "But the hegemony is adapting. We need to keep changing the frequency to stay ahead of them." As she spoke, her fingers flew over holographic controls, adjusting the fields in real time to counter the hegemony's attempts to breach them. It was a constant battle of adaptation and counter-adaptation, with the fate of the planet hanging in the balance. In orbit, the battle took an unexpected turn. A group of Fireflies, led by Captain Diego Alvarez, managed to breach the defenses of one of the smaller hegemony ships. "We're in." Diego's excited voice came over the comm. "Deploying Watanabe's nanodrones now." The swarm of microscopic robots poured into the alien ship systems, their AI directives guiding them to critical components. Within minutes, the massive ship began to list, its weapons going silent. This small victory had a ripple effect across the battlefield. Human forces, emboldened by the sight of a disabled hegemony ship, pressed their attack with renewed vigor. The Firefly fleet, despite taking losses, continued to harass the much larger alien ships, their agility making them difficult targets. On the ground, the situation was more dire. While the quantum fields had blunted the initial assault, some hegemony forces had managed to land. In the outskirts of Sydney, Australian Defence Forces engaged in brutal urban combat with alien shock troops. Sergeant Emma Watson, her face streaked with dirt and sweat, led her squad through the rubble-strewn streets. "Remember your training," she called out to her soldiers. "Use the environment, stay mobile, and hit them where they least expect it." As if to demonstrate, she popped out of cover, her weapon spitting a burst of hypervelocity rounds that tore through an alien's energy shield. The hegemony troops, used to overwhelming their opponents with superior technology, found themselves outmaneuvered by the resourceful humans. Similar scenes played out in cities and rural areas around the globe. While the aliens had the advantage in raw firepower, Humanity's preparation and knowledge of the terrain evened the odds. Every street became a potential ambush site, every building a fortress. In New Delhi, Rahul's AI defense system proved its worth, coordinating the city's defenses with inhuman speed and precision. Automated turrets tracked and engaged alien craft, while civilian volunteers, guided by the AI, moved supplies and evacuated wounded with remarkable efficiency. "It's working," Rahul exclaimed, his eyes glued to screens showing the battle's progress. "The AI is learning and adapting even faster than we anticipated." But the hegemony was far from defeated. As the initial shock of humanity's resistance wore off, they began to bring more of their vast resources to bear. Fresh waves of ships emerged from hyperspace, reinforcing their battered fleet. Supreme Commander Zaxnar, his initial disbelief now replaced with cold anger, ordered a change in tactics. "Enough of this precision strikes," he snarled to his subordinates. "Commence planetary bombardment. Let's see how well their defenses hold up under continuous fire." The change in strategy was immediately apparent. The sky lit up with an almost continuous barrage of energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. Earth's defenses, already strained, began to buckle under the onslaught. In Antarctica, Dr. Elena Rodriguez made a fateful decision. "We have no choice," she said, her voice grim. "Initiate Operation Gaia's Fury." Across the planet, the network of weather control stations sprang into action. Storm systems formed with unnatural speed, massive hurricanes and tornadoes taking shape in minutes rather than days. Earthquakes rocked fault lines, and volcanoes that had been dormant for centuries roared to life. The effect on the battle was immediate and dramatic. Hegemony landing craft were tossed about like leaves in a gale, while lightning strikes from the engineered superstorms played havoc with their energy shields. But the cost to Earth was also severe, with entire regions devastated by the unleashed forces of nature. As the battle raged on, it became clear that neither side could claim a quick victory. Humanity's innovative defenses and fierce determination had blunted the hegemony's initial assault, but the aliens' vast numbers and advanced technology meant they could absorb losses that would cripple Earth's forces. In orbit, the Firefly fleet had been reduced to less than half its original numbers, but they continued to fight with undiminished spirit. Captain Alvarez, his ship battered but still operational, led a daring attack on the hegemony's flagship. "This is for Earth," he shouted as his ship unleashed its remaining armament directly at the alien vessel's command center. The resulting explosion briefly outshone the sun, and for a moment, it seemed as if a decisive blow had been struck. But as the light faded, the hegemony flagship remained largely intact, its massive bulk-absorbing damage that would have vaporized a smaller ship. Supreme Commander Zaxnar, shaken but alive, looked out at the battle with a mixture of rage and grudging respect. "These humans," he mused, "are proving to be worthy opponents, but the hegemony has never known defeat, and we will not start now." As the first day of battle drew to a close, both sides took stock of their positions. Earth had survived the initial onslaught, proving to the hegemony and to themselves that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. But the cost had been enormous, with cities in ruins and millions dead or displaced. In Fortress Earth, the global command center was a hive of activity. Military leaders and scientific experts pored over battle reports and sensor data, trying to formulate a strategy for the days to come. Secretary General Okoro, her face etched with fatigue, but her eyes still burning with determination, addressed the assembled leaders. "We have bloodied their nose," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "But this is only the beginning. The hegemony will be back, and they will hit us even harder. We must be ready." As if to punctuate her words, a distant rumble shook the facility. On the monitors, a new wave of hegemony ships could be seen entering Earth's atmosphere. The brief respite was over. The next round of this existential battle was about to begin. Around the world, humans steeled themselves for what was to come. In bunkers and shelters, in command centers and cockpits, a grim determination took hold. They had stood up to the galactic superpower and held their ground. Now they would need to dig even deeper, to fight with even greater courage and ingenuity. As the new wave of alien ships descended, humanity prepared to show the galactic hegemony once again that Earth would not go quietly into the night. The battle for survival had only just begun, and the human spirit, tested but unbroken, rose to meet the challenge. Turning the tide, 2,000 words. As the second day of the invasion dawned, the situation looked grim for Earth. The hegemony's reinforcements had arrived in full force, and the constant bombardment was taking its toll on the planet's defenses. Yet, in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity's spirit remained unbroken. In the charred ruins of Rio de Janeiro, a group of civilians led by local teacher Maria Santos had formed an impromptu resistance cell. Armed with little more than makeshift weapons and an unbreakable will, they harassed hegemony ground forces, buying time for military units to regroup. "We fight not just for ourselves," Maria shouted to her fellow resistors, "but for all of humanity. Every second we hold out is a second our scientists and soldiers can use to find a way to beat these invaders." Her words echoed the sentiment felt across the globe. From the icy wastes of Siberia to the sun-baked Australian outback, humans from all walks of life joined the fight, each contributing in their own way to the planet's defense. In orbit, the remnants of the Firefly fleet regrouped under the command of Captain Yuki Tanaka. With their numbers severely depleted, Tanaka knew they couldn't hope to match the hegemony in direct combat. Instead, she devised a new strategy. "We'll use hit-and-run tactics," she explained to her pilots. "Strike fast, then disappear into the debris field. We may not be able to destroy their ships, but we can disrupt their operations and buy time for our ground forces." The new strategy proved effective. The agile Fireflies darted between the hulking hegemony warships, launching precision strikes on vulnerable points before vanishing into the growing cloud of battle debris. While they couldn't inflict significant damage, their constant harassment forced the aliens to divert resources to defend their fleet, easing the pressure on Earth's surface. Meanwhile, in a hidden laboratory beneath the Amazon rainforest, Dr. Sophia Reyes had made a breakthrough. Working tirelessly with a team of international scientists, she had found a way to amplify the effects of the quantum interference field. "We can't just defend anymore," she explained during an emergency briefing with Earth's leadership. "We need to take the fight to them. With these modifications, we can project the field onto their ships, disrupting their systems from the inside." The plan was risky. To implement it, they would need to get close to the hegemony's largest warships, a suicide mission by any standard. But in the face of certain defeat, even the slimmest chance of victory seemed worth taking. Secretary General Okoro, her face haggard from sleepless nights, but her resolve undiminished, gave the go-ahead. "Make it happen, Doctor. We'll give you whatever resources you need." As Reyes and her team worked to modify Earth's remaining satellites and defense platforms, the battle on the ground continued to rage. In the skies over Europe, a combined force of fighters from multiple nations engaged in a desperate dogfight with hegemony attack craft. Squadron leader Javier Rodriguez, his jet's fuel gauge hovering near empty, lined up a shot on an alien fighter. "For Earth," he cried, letting loose a barrage of missiles. The hegemony craft exploded in a brilliant fireball, but there was no time for celebration. Two more alien ships moved in to take its place. On the ground, the tide of battle surged back and forth. In some areas, human forces managed to push back the alien invaders. In others, hegemony troops advanced relentlessly, their superior technology allowing them to absorb punishing losses. But even in retreat, humanity fought with cunning and determination. In the streets of Tokyo, a group of robotics engineers led by Dr. Hana Watanabe had reprogrammed a swarm of maintenance robots into a mobile electronic warfare unit. The small machines infiltrated hegemony positions, disrupting communications and sowing confusion among the alien ranks. "Size isn't everything," Hana quipped as she watched the aliens flail about, trying to swat the tiny but persistent bots. Sometimes, the smallest tool can make the biggest difference. As the battle entered its third day, Dr. Rice's modifications were ready. The plan was set into motion. A squadron of volunteers, led by the indomitable Captain Diego Alvarez, prepared to embark on what many considered a one-way mission. "We know the risks," Alvarez addressed his team, a mix of pilots, engineers, and scientists. "But the fate of our entire species hangs in the balance. If we succeed, we give Earth a fighting chance. That's worth any sacrifice." The mission launched under the cover of a massive diversionary attack. While Earth's remaining military forces engaged the hegemony fleet in a frontal assault, Alvarez's team slipped through the chaos in a specially modified Firefly, its hull bristling with the new quantum interference projectors. As they approached the largest hegemony warship, alarms blared. They had been detected. "Evasive maneuvers," Alvarez shouted, his hands dancing over the controls. The Firefly jinked and weaved, barely avoiding the barrage of energy weapons fire. "We're not going to make it," the ship's engineer, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, called out. "The hull can't take much more of this." Alvarez gritted his teeth. "We have to. For Earth." With a final, desperate maneuver, he brought the Firefly in close to the hegemony ship's hull. "Now, Yuki." Dr. Tanaka slammed her hand down on the activation switch. The quantum interference projectors hummed to life, bathing the massive alien warship in a shimmering field of energy. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a giant awakening from slumber, the hegemony ship began to shudder. Its energy weapons flickered and died. Its shields collapsed. And most importantly, its engines sputtered and went dark. "It's working," Yuki cried, her eyes wide with disbelief and hope. The effect rippled across the battlefield. As the hegemony's largest warship drifted powerless in space, confusion spread through the alien fleet. Supreme Commander Zaxanar, watching from his flagship, felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. "What is happening?" he demanded, his multiple limbs gesticulating wildly. "How can these primitives possess such technology?" But there was no time for answers. Taking advantage of the aliens' disarray, Earth's forces pressed their attack. The remaining Fireflies, led by Captain Tanaka, swarmed the disoriented hegemony fleet. On the ground, human armies surged forward, reclaiming lost territory and pushing the alien invaders back. In Fortress Earth, the global command center erupted in cheers as reports of victories poured in from around the world. For the first time since the invasion began, hope blossomed. The tide was turning. But the battle was far from over. The hegemony, while shocked, was not defeated. Zaxanar, his initial fear giving way to cold rage, ordered a strategic retreat. "Regroup beyond their weapons range," he commanded. "We will not be caught off guard again." As the hegemony fleet withdrew to the outer reaches of the solar system, Earth enjoyed its first moment of respite. The cost had been enormous. Cities lay in ruins, millions were dead or missing, and the planet's ecosystem had been ravaged by the weaponized weather systems. Yet, amid the destruction, the human spirit remained unbroken. As the immediate threat receded, people emerged from shelters and bunkers, blinking in the sunlight. Strangers embraced, united by their shared survival. The work of rebuilding began almost immediately, with the same determination that had characterized the defense effort now turned towards recovery. In a global broadcast, Secretary General Okoro addressed the population. Her face, streaked with tears but beaming with pride, filled screens around the world. "People of Earth," she began, her voice choked with emotion, "we have done the impossible. We have stood against the mightiest force in the galaxy, and we have not fallen. This is not the end of our struggle, but it is a turning point. We have shown the hegemony and ourselves what humanity is truly capable of when we stand united." As her words rang out, a new sense of purpose swept across the planet. The hegemony had been pushed back, but everyone knew they would return. Earth had won a battle, but the war was far from over. In laboratories and factories, on military bases, and in civilian homes, preparations for the next phase of the conflict began. The breakthrough with the quantum interference technology had opened new avenues of research. Scientists worked around the clock to refine and improve the system, while engineers sought ways to incorporate it into more of Earth's defenses. Captain Alvarez and his team, hailed as heroes, wasted no time in sharing everything they had learned from their close encounter with the hegemony ship. Every scrap of data, every observation, was scrutinized for any advantage it might provide. In orbit, the debris from the battle became a resource. Salvage teams braved deadly radiation and treacherous fields of shrapnel to recover alien technology. Each piece, no matter how small, could potentially unlock new advancements for Earth's defenses. As the day drew to a close, humanity stood at a crossroads. They had survived the initial invasion against all odds. They had even managed to push back against a foe that had seemed invincible, but the gravest challenges still lay ahead. The hegemony would return. Of that there was no doubt. They would come back with new strategies, with technology adapted to counter Earth's defenses. The next battle would be even more desperate, even more costly. But as the people of Earth looked to the stars, there was no fear in their eyes, only determination, only resolve. They had tasted victory, had seen what they could accomplish when united. Whatever the hegemony brought next, humanity would be ready. In the depths of space, Supreme Commander Zaxxnar gazed at the blue-green orb of Earth, his expression unreadable. "Prepare for total war," he growled to his subordinates. "No more games, no more underestimation. We will crush these humans, no matter the cost." The stage was set for the final confrontation. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. As both sides prepared for the battle to come, one thing was certain: the universe would never be the same again. The final stand and aftermath. 2,000 words. The respite was short-lived. Just as Earth began to catch its breath, long-range sensors detected a massive surge of activity at the edge of the solar system. The hegemony was returning, and this time they were bringing everything they had. In Fortress Earth, the war room buzzed with frantic activity. Holographic displays showed the approaching armada, a fleet so vast it dwarfed anything seen in the initial invasion. "They're not taking any chances this time," Colonel Chen observed grimly. "This is a full-scale extermination force." Secretary General Okoro nodded, her face set in grim determination. "Then we give them a fight they'll never forget. Initiate Operation Phoenix." Across the globe, humanity's final defensive plan sprang into action. Every scrap of salvaged alien tech, every breakthrough made in the past few days, was put to use. The quantum interference technology that had turned the tide in the previous battle had been refined and mass-produced. Now it formed the backbone of Earth's defense strategy. In orbit, a new fleet of ships waited. These weren't the hastily assembled fireflies of the first battle, but a true fighting force. Sleek, powerful vessels that incorporated both human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien technology. At their head was the Phoenix, Earth's first true capital ship, commanded by the now legendary Captain Diego Alvarez. On the ground, cities had been transformed into fortresses. Every building bristled with weapons, every street a potential ambush site. The weaponized weather control system had been fine-tuned, giving humanity unprecedented control over the battlefield environment. As the hegemony fleet entered the inner solar system, Supreme Commander Zaxxnar addressed his forces. "This ends today," he snarled, his multiple eyes gleaming with malice. "No more unexpected resistances, no more surprising tactics. We will reduce this planet to ash, and let it serve as an example to any who would defy the hegemony." The battle began in the cold depths of space beyond Mars. Earth's fleet, severely outnumbered but refusing to give ground, engaged the hegemony armada. The Phoenix led the charge, its advanced weapons tearing through alien shields like paper. "For Earth," Alvarez cried as his ship dove into the heart of the enemy formation. All around him, Human pilots fought with a ferocity that caught the hegemony off guard. What they lacked in numbers, they made up for in sheer determination and unpredictability. On Earth, Dr. Sophia Reyes watched the space battle unfold with bated breath. "The quantum fields are holding," she reported. "But they're adapting faster than before. We need to buy more time." In response, Earth unleashed its next surprise. From hidden bases on the Moon and Mars, squadrons of unmanned drones swarmed into the battle. These weren't simple machines, but highly advanced AIs, the culmination of Rahul's work on adaptive combat systems. They fought with inhuman precision, sacrificing themselves without hesitation to protect human ships. The battle raged for hours, the void of space lit by the constant flare of explosions and weapons fire. Slowly, inexorably, the hegemony pressed forward. Despite heavy losses, their numbers were simply too great. As the alien fleet approached Earth, they faced the full fury of the planet's defenses. Massive ion cannons, built into the peaks of mountain ranges, opened fire. The weaponized weather system unleashed storms of unimaginable power, lightning bolts the size of skyscrapers lashing out at hegemony ships. Yet still they came. In New York, now a citadel of gleaming metal and energy shields, Maria Santos led a group of civilian fighters. As hegemony dropships descended through the storm-wracked sky, she rallied her people. "Remember, we're fighting for every human who has ever lived, and for all who might yet live. We cannot fail." Similar scenes played out across the globe. In the rice paddies of China, farmers turned guerrilla fighters harassed alien landing parties. In the savannas of Africa, tribal warriors armed with scavenged alien weapons stood shoulder to shoulder with high-tech military units. The planet itself seemed to rebel against the invaders. Volcanoes erupted, earthquakes shook the ground, and tsunamis crashed against coastlines. It was nature's fury guided by human hands, the planet's last defense against those who would destroy it. In orbit, the battle had reached a fever pitch. The Phoenix, battered but unbowed, led a desperate charge against the hegemony flagship. "This is our chance," Alvarez called to his fleet. "If we can take out their command, we might just turn this around." His words were cut short as a massive energy beam lanced out from the hegemony ship, spearing the Phoenix. For a moment, the great ship hung in space, its hull glowing white-hot. Then, with a final defiant roar from its engines, it rammed straight into the alien vessel. The resulting explosion was visible from the surface of Earth, a new star briefly flaring in the daylight sky. When the glare faded, both the Phoenix and the hegemony flagship were gone. The loss of their command ship threw the alien fleet into disarray. On the hegemony's secondary command vessel, Supreme Commander Zaxnar watched in disbelief as his carefully laid plans crumbled. "Impossible," he muttered. "How can they keep fighting? How can they be this strong?" The answer came not in words, but in actions. With their enemy faltering, humanity pressed its advantage. The remaining Earth ships, joined by fresh squadrons launched from hidden bases on the far side of the Moon, tore into the disorganized hegemony fleet. On the surface, the tide began to turn. Alien landing parties, cut off from orbital support, found themselves outmaneuvered and overwhelmed. In the streets of Tokyo, Dr. Hana Watanabe's swarms of reprogrammed robots proved decisive, infiltrating and disabling hegemony weapon systems. As the battle entered its final hours, it was clear that something unprecedented was happening. The mighty galactic hegemony, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, were being pushed back by a species they had dismissed as primitive. In a final, desperate gambit, Zaxnar ordered his remaining ships to concentrate fire on Earth's major population centers. "If we can't have this world, then neither will they," he raged. But he had underestimated humanity one last time. As the hegemony weapons powered up, the quantum interference fields around Earth pulsed with newfound strength. Dr. Reyes, working until the very end, had found a way to extend the field's range to cover the entire planet. The hegemony's attack fizzled harmlessly against the shimmering barrier. In that moment, watching their mightiest weapons fail, the alien invaders' will to fight evaporated. "Fall back," Zaxonar ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. "Fall back to the outer system." As the remnants of the once mighty armada retreated, a stunned silence fell over Earth. Then, gradually, the silence gave way to cheers. The cheers became a roar, a planet-wide celebration of survival and triumph. In the days that followed, the full scale of what had been achieved began to sink in. Humanity had not simply survived. They had defeated the greatest power in the known galaxy. The cost had been staggering. Entire cities reduced to rubble, millions dead, the planet's ecosystem pushed to the brink. But they had won. As the immediate crisis passed, new questions arose. What would happen now? Would the hegemony return? And perhaps most importantly, what would humanity do with the incredible technological leaps they had made? 2 weeks after the final battle, Secretary General Okoro addressed the United Nations. The gathering was a far cry from the panic-stricken meeting that had followed the hegemony's first ultimatum. Now there was a sense of unity, of shared purpose that transcended old national boundaries. "We stand here today as the victors of the greatest conflict in human history," Okoro began. "But our victory brings with it great responsibility. We have seen the face of the wider galaxy, and we know now that we are not alone. The question we must ask ourselves is this: what kind of galactic citizens do we wish to be?" The debate that followed was long and heated. Some argued for isolation, for using their new technology to hide Earth from further alien contact. Others pushed for rapid expansion, for taking the fight to the hegemony, and carving out a human empire among the stars. In the end, a middle path was chosen. Earth would reach out to the stars, not as conquerors, but as explorers and diplomats. They would seek out other species subjugated by the hegemony, offer them alliance and protection. Together, they would forge a new galactic community, one built on cooperation rather than domination. The work of rebuilding began. Cities rose from the ashes, incorporating the best of human and alien technology. The climate, so badly damaged by the weaponized weather systems, was gradually stabilized. And all the while, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes, seeing not just distant lights, but future homes and allies. 5 years after the invasion, the first human diplomatic fleet set out from Earth. Led by Maria Santos, now an ambassador, they carried a message of peace and cooperation to the galaxy. But they also carried a warning. Earth was not to be trifled with. They had faced the mightiest force in the galaxy and emerged victorious. They would not hesitate to defend themselves again if needed. As the ships disappeared into the depths of space, Dr. Sophia Rice stood in her laboratory, watching a simulation of the quantum fields that had saved humanity. "We did it," she murmured to herself. "We faced the impossible, and we won." Beside her, a small plaque hung on the wall. It bore a simple message, a quote that had become Earth's unofficial motto in the years since the invasion. "Never underestimate the human spirit. In our darkest hour, we shine the brightest." As humanity took its first steps into the galactic community, that spirit, tested by fire and proven in battle, would light their way among the stars.